Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 2 of the Bio Africa. Apologies for the late start. We just had a technical glitch. Technology does do that to us at times, so apologies for that. But I hope that you've had a good day 1 and that you enjoyed the dinner last night. And congratulations to all our students that did exceptionally well. I think we should give them all a round of applause. It was really a great job they did. Great. So today, again, promises to be a good day. I just want to indicate that we're going to try to make up a lot of the time. And so for the facilitators of the different sessions, please do make sure that you keep to time. We're going to be making announcements for the meeting rooms, so just keep an eye on the announcements that are made so that you know which room you go to. So we'll start today, and again, as I said, it promises to continue to be an exciting day for us. Today we've got, we actually have 3 speakers, but we will then start with the address that we will receive from the DDG of Technology and Innovation, Dr. Rakeshni, who comes from the Department of Science and Innovation. Welcome, Rakeshni.
Not all of us are this tall. Dr. Phil Mshwaka, Director General at the Department of Science and Innovation, Dr. Nhlanhla Msomi, Chairman of the Board for Africa Bio, Dr. Boitumelo Somete Makokutlela, the CEO of South African Health Products Regulatory Authority, Honorable Peggy Nkonyeni, KZN MEC for Finance. Welcome, MEC. I know you are not well, but we're very grateful to have you in our midst today. Esteemed delegates, good morning and welcome to day 2 of the 6th Africa Bio Convention, themed Reimagining Biotechnology Innovation for Africa's Security and Development. The timing of such a conference could not be better, given the challenges that we have faced in recent years and continue to face, from the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, food and energy security crises, and escalating prices for basic commodities, to name a few. These are exacerbated by unemployment, poverty, and inequality. The program for this convention allows us to unpack and perhaps seek innovative solutions to these socioeconomic ills through the strengthening of engagements that have been fostered over the past day or so and continue to be strengthened over the course of this week. As the Minister alluded to in his speech yesterday, we as a country have taken significant strides to develop and test a range of initiatives, instruments, technology platforms, research and innovation programs, networks, linkages, financial packages and incentives, and so much more to find the best way of advancing a sustainable bioeconomy. And a lot depends on each and every one of you, whether you're a global business executive, an entrepreneur, a researcher, a student, regulatory authority, a board member, or a policymaker. Each of you have a role to play by working together to find innovative yet mutually beneficial solutions to battle the unique contextual challenges facing the global South, whether it relates to health, climate, agriculture and food security, indigenous knowledge systems and communities, natural resources, and/or disaster management. Such engagements further open the door for engaged, coordinated, equitable, and sustainable partnerships, for not just knowledge sharing, but for impactful research, informed policy development, and evidence-driven decision-making and action. In steering efforts towards realizing this vision, there's a parallel need to focus on solution-based outcomes and the demand for investing in the necessary skills and expertise, as well as the requisite physical and digital infrastructures required to support a vibrant and sustainable bioinnovation ecosystem supported by research-intensive institutions, industry partners, private sector, governments, NGOs, and communities. I'm sure that over the next few days, open deliberations and discussions on growing the bioeconomy will ensue, whether it's on the fourth industrial revolution and its impact on the bioeconomy and technology as it evolves, or on the development of a robust domestic vaccine manufacturing capability. As such engagements ensue, encourage that these are underpinned on transformative partnerships for joint research and development programs and exchanges, access to global research infrastructure facilities, and investing in national platforms and capabilities. Human capital development through the investment in specialized education and training programs that support the evolving demands of the bioeconomy. And I urge you to consider redesigning, rethinking, or perhaps reimagining programs and interventions that focus on addressing the legacies of the past and supporting the development of a pipeline of skilled women, youth, and people with disabilities by providing them with the opportunities to be trained and gain employment in bio and bio-related industries. And finally, stimulating bioscience, technology, and innovation capabilities that allows for the acquisition of a global market share for small and medium-sized enterprises, not only for the country, but also for positioning us and the continent. In all these engagements, due cognizance, proactive strides, and concerted efforts must be taken to ensure marginalized communities, including historically disadvantaged institutions and TVET colleges, are brought to the table and to the discussion. I would also urge you as key stakeholders in the bioeconomy to not only focus on strengthening the value chains in the biosector, but also anchor these conversations and strategic engagements on a holistic approach that accelerates scientific discoveries, innovations, and industries for strengthening the all-Africa engagement. I further recommend that you continue to network and explore partnerships that will allow us as Africans to grasp the opportunities presented by biotechnology and innovation, which features strongly in the Department of Science and Innovation's Decadal Plan. This plan emphasizes 4 societal grand challenges, namely climate change, future-proofing education and skills, re-industrializing the modern economy, and the future of society. There's a strong focus on 2 STI priorities, and that is health innovation and energy innovation. In essence, the Decadal Plan advocates for the transformative potential of science, technology, and innovation in achieving greater impact and driving economic growth and employment and creating livelihoods through enhanced partnerships and coordination with all stakeholders across governments, universities, private sector, and relevant communities, not just in South Africa, but continentally and beyond. In closing, I'd like to thank the organizers of this conference, Africa Bio, for bringing such a multitude of stakeholders together under one roof, with the aim of leveraging and deepening sustainable and equitable partnerships between and among a diverse array of organizations that drives biotech innovation from the bottom up. I look forward to the fruitful deliberations on how we can optimize cooperation, collaboration, and co-investment opportunities to create a vibrant national economy that is inclusive, diverse, equitable, and fair in its representation. I thank you.
Thank you so much. That was so inspiring. And so thank you so much for that address. Before I introduce our next speaker, I'd like to acknowledge the MEC who's here with us this morning. And MEC, I'm so humbled and inspired by you. MEC joined us this morning. She was supposed to address us, but she's not feeling well, to a point where she's lost her voice. But testament to her commitment to the advances of this country, she's here. She said she will come in person and still participate. So we really want to honor you and thank you for your commitment. And again, demonstrating resilience. I mean, this is a plenary of women, and it just shows that we get things done. You know, when we're called to duty, we come, and we are at the table, and we make sure that we are present. So thank you so much, MEC. We really appreciate that. But also another point that Dr. Rakeshni spoke to is the importance of diversity. And while as a society we're so focused on gender equity, on matters of supporting and accelerating women's careers, I also want to commend the men in this room and the men in this sector. I mean, the diversity that we're seeing in this meeting is definitely amazing. The commitment that we're seeing from the men in the biotech sector, how they are able to and they are committed to advancement of women's careers, but not only women's career, but also young and upcoming scientists. I mean, we saw last night with all the researchers and the scientists that received the awards. So again, I want us to, give a round of applause for the men in this room and thanking them for their commitment to inclusivity and diversity. Thank you. With that said, we're going to welcome to the podium another very amazing woman who is on the board of the Technology Innovation Agency, Ms. Sebenzile Matebula. Welcome.
Madam Facilitator, and apologies for taking a bit long. I'm not as nimble as I used to be in my earlier days. Good morning, and all protocol observed. MEC, by way of introduction, my name is Sebenzile Matebula, known as Sebe, and when I received the invite to participate this panel discussion, what came to mind immediately is my passion and lived experience as an African woman with a disability. I thought amongst all the issues of innovation and technology, I would focus my contribution on issues pertaining to innovation in respect of what is very close to my heart as a person who has had a lived experience of disability from the age of 9 months. It is a subject that is not commonly discussed, most unfortunately, especially in the types of platforms and events such as we are having during this week. Yet it is a subject matter that affects all of us in this room and the whole world in many different ways, in our workplaces, families, communities, but more importantly, in national development perspectives. Through my many years of life, I've had the privilege of contributing in setting policy, in participating in advocacy initiatives, in business, in entrepreneurship, and in governance. And so my particular disability was not a setback, but served to place me in spaces that I never imagined as a child. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm saying this just as a gentle reminder, particularly to the students who are in the room today, that education is very key to your future. Never mind what those who just happened to land opportunities without education experienced. Just focus on education as your trajectory in life. For my formal education, I studied in the natural sciences, specializing in biology. You sure?
Yeah.
Should I put it here?
There you go.
Mm. I'll feel very uncomfortable because you're leaning over my shoulder. Have a seat, Dr. Rakash. It will behave. I think the communication guys, I'm sure you can just manage that. Lay over there. So for my formal education, I actually studied in natural sciences, specializing in biology, environmental science, and statistics. And I landed up very boring job where I worked as a researcher at an agricultural research station. But as I was sharing yesterday with some young people outside, that what may seem boring, you can't hear me, okay. What may actually seem boring is actually fruitful at the end of the day. So the space of innovation came along when I was appointed on the board of TIA. And I must be honest, at the beginning, I had no clue what my role was other than that of governance. But then I realized that the fact that I personally use assistive devices to manage my life enables me to understand the critical role of innovation in actually promoting the rights of persons with disabilities. I've taken the role of leadership from a very young age, as I was always very active, and presented myself to these leadership roles. In the layman's language, I was very forward and truly in your face to the point of being arrogant and having a daredevil attitude. But the reality is that unless you avail yourself in life, you will not be recognized and given opportunities to advance in life. So I'm just saying this more to inspire our young people, that whenever an opportunity is presented to you, I know a lot of you are in the technology space, make sure you take the opportunity and run with it. And so just to focus on disability, there are 650 million people in the world who have some sort of disability. And by the way, this number increases every year as population age, there's ongoing wars, conflict, gender-based violence incidences, especially in our country, failed medical interventions, poor health care, global warming, and the list is endless. Now, in Africa, 200 million of that 650 million actually reside in Africa, which is a very humbling statistics. And this number escalates daily. Innovation is greatly needed, most in Africa, to enable people with disabilities to enjoy a decent quality of life and to become contributing members for development of their families, communities, respective countries, and the continent. I think it really does get a bit boring and annoying every time you hear issues about Africa. It's all these unfortunate incidences. But the reality is we have solutions right at hand as Africans to be able to find our own solutions. And as African women in particular, within the innovation and technology space, we are best placed to champion the urgently needed role to enable people with disabilities to attain a decent and good quality of life where their rights and dignity are upheld and respected, just like that of every other citizen. So innovation enables us to create meaningful solutions, to find solutions in Africa, for Africa. The reality is that many of the solutions currently available to address issues of disabilities emanate from across the seas. The technologies that we use as persons with disabilities are manufactured abroad, but often they don't necessarily suit our conditions in Africa. So it is important for innovators to look for ways to move the paradigm shift on disability from a medical model perspective to a social and human rights perspective. When I grew up, my grandmother lived in a hut made from thatch, and the ground was made from cow dung. And as a child, it was quite a revolting experience. But the reality is that was a natural air conditioning. That thatch kept it warm in cold winters and cool in summer. But what I noticed as I progressed in life was that that doorway, which was quite low, so for tall people it was a challenge that to crouch in. For me, it was very easy because I could easily be pushed in my wheelchair. Now, unfortunately, with the advent of so-called modern times, those structures are no longer in exist. You hardly find them except in cultural villages where they're used to showcase what traditionally would have been an African home, because they are now considered primitive. But they were actually excellent environments providing natural air conditioning, including the disgusting cow dung on the floor. So we have a responsibility as innovators to remind young people not to discard everything that is African, but rather to transform it to suit modern times. Innovation will allow us to use our own natural resources in Africa to address the endless suffering that the continent faces. Of interest is that people in Africa are actually very innovative, and some of the innovations are really worthy of note. And I'm sure you read about them on a daily basis. But what is lacking is the support from technology and innovation leaders. This is where those of us who are in the space need to own up and take the mantle of promoting these African innovations and upscale them to commercial level. We also have the responsibility to play an advocacy role to promote the work of African rural, suburban, or informal settlement context, to support them to promote their innovations. The reality is that Africa must move forward, removing the element of persons with disabilities as being dependent on others. Persons with disabilities also want their independence and dignity. I do, that I can tell you clearly. And clearly, biotechnology innovations can play an extraordinary role in emancipating persons with disabilities. This is demonstrated in everyday laboratories of so-called advanced economies. Africa should strive to emulate these laboratories using availability resources of both human and locally sourced ingredients. I just thought through you, Madam, I'd touch on a few global initiatives just to put into perspective the issue of disability within the innovation space. We do have what is referred to as the Global Disability Innovation Hub, which is a collaborative initiative focused on promoting innovation research and design to enhance the quality of lives of persons with disabilities. You can read up the rest of that description online, but I just want to highlight the relevance of these initiatives. There's also the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, aimed to protect and promote rights and dignity of persons with disabilities. Within our own African perspective, we have the African Disability protocol which builds on the convention. And this protocol has an African relevance. It's based on all the articles that are there, as those of you who are involved in government initiatives know how articles of the convention would be crafted. But I just thought I'd mention that all these protocols have a direct relevance to promoting rights of persons with disabilities, and it brings in an element of innovation and technology. So there are also African initiatives which are aimed at promoting disabilities in innovation, creation, ownership, and implementation across various sectors, primarily in the healthcare space, agriculture, industrial biotechnology, and what I consider of primary importance, the indigenous knowledge systems. These include the assistive technology hubs, disability inclusive agricultural programs, inclusive healthcare programs, industrial biotech and skills development, indigenous knowledge preservation and accessibility, advocacy and policy initiatives, collaborations with international organizations, and research and innovation grants. So, Madam Facilitator, I'll be done very soon. You're getting a bit nervous. You'd ask yourself, if you're either a scientist or a lay person, why it is that we're eternally being faced with challenges when it comes to issues of technological advancement in Africa, with a specific bias towards disabilities. There are just some very practical issues that continue to hinder the development of technologies in Africa. And these include aspects such as value-added tax, healthcare systems, policy formulation. The reality is, unless there's willingness, and it starts from political willingness to provide transformation of these exclusionary factors, there will continue to be an exclusion of persons with disabilities who could benefit from innovation and technological advancement. And on that note, I thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much for that presentation. Certainly very insightful. I have a few questions for you as women leaders in your respective areas, and I hope I'll represent our audience well with these questions. One of the themes that's coming through quite strongly, at least in the sessions that I've been in, is diversity, and how in solutioning, how when we think about innovation, we really need to get a perspective from a diverse audience, from a diverse perspective. And I wanted to get your reflections on that. Being in the innovation space, both of you, are we doing that enough? Are we getting perspectives, considering the diversity that we have in our country, not just racial diversity, but from many perspectives? Are we doing that enough?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree. I think a lot of time research is driven in a linear process at the universities. And we don't take into consideration that not all students are in a trajectory to enter into master's, doctoral, postdoc, academic. At some stage, they need to get off the train and start innovation industries or start up ideas that they have. And the question also is, how often once you enter that entrepreneurship scheme or line, do you take cognizance of what's needed? As an example, the dishwasher was invented by a woman. And of course, it's changed the way in which men and women live lives. We also need to take into consideration what Sepa was saying. You know, there's so many things in Africa that we just wish to toss aside. And there are a number of extinct industries that have come to be. I don't know those of you who used to have VCRs or Walkmans. And those technologies are gone because you have these Spotifys. My 10-year-old is always on this. So how are we involving not just the gender divide, but the intergenerational engagements? So diversity needs to consider not just race, gender, people with disability, but we need to also look at the pipeline of those involved in the conversations. And I think that makes for a vibrant economy, sustainable economies. I don't know if you want to add, Seba.
Your mic seems to work better. I agree with I think my energy doesn't agree with the mic. It was working perfectly with you. I think where I appreciate the question is the matter of the fact that we're not a homogeneous society. We're all different. Even as women, we all have our different characteristics, some of which are not always favorable. But the reality is that within the innovation space, we actually benefit, or we can benefit, if we feed from each other. I particularly like referring to young people because for me, it's as our future leaders, those are the ones that we need to take direction from. I know as elders, we tend to think we know best, but the reality is they bring in new ideas, new innovations, but it's important to recognize some of them because some of them can be quite weird in our own personal experiences. But I think a blend of what they stand for and what they present mixed with what we understand and where we come from as, for lack of a better word, elder leadership is where the basis of innovation comes from. There's a lot in respect of technological development that sometimes one finds, you find yourself hesitant to actually own up to the fact that you're kind of not understanding it. Let me use there's an example of the scanning thing. I don't know what they call it. When that QR code. So whenever you're at a hotel and you want a menu and they tell you, okay, ma'am, in your room there's a QR code. I've tried it, I've given up on it, and I'm like, give me a hard copy of the menu. And they always have one. But now, in my life, within the disability sector, I think to myself, so there's this QR code which was developed to make life easier, and I think it emerged during COVID, because you couldn't touch things. Well and good. But if you have a sight challenge, you're blind or you can't see very well, how on earth are you going to manage that QR code? So whilst some technological advancements may be necessary because the whole point is to make life easier, but there's a consideration that because we're so different, we still need to maintain aspects that will allow and enable other people who may be different from us to be able to participate in life equitably and enjoy the same quality of life.
We seem to be having success with this mic, so I'll also stick to it. Last question, because I would like for us to wrap up at 10:30. Last question, and also your concluding remarks, is as women in leadership, if you can share with us what you're doing in your respective environments to contribute to shaping an enabling environment, an environment that is conducive for women to thrive. So not just make it, but really thrive.
That's an interesting question. And I think as women leaders, or just as citizens, we have to be responsible. And whether it's in communities, how often do you see these children on the street? What do you do about it? not begging. Are you an active member in your community to make your community work? That's the first one. I strongly believe in it. You can't depend and constantly, and now that I'm a government official, I can't constantly say government has to fix it. We all have a role to fixing it from grassroots. The other thing is that you need to open doors for younger women. Oftentimes, when women get on the top, it's almost as if they don't want other young ladies joining that echelon. I don't know what it is, but I'm speaking freely because it is a women's conversation. And I'm actually from the University of Pretoria, and I'm on secondment to the department. And the things I put in is an early career academy. And I've got several grants that support women's development. So if you need to take time out from your arduous journey of being an early career academic, pushing through your publications, getting your first rating, you need to just embrace being a woman and a mother. It's okay. It's okay. We can afford that time. So when you come back, we put in schemes for mentors, building you up again. What are the barriers to you becoming productive in that space? Or taking and bridging your innovation and making that into commercializable ideas, technologies, businesses. We have that support. And there's a number of areas to do it, but how often do we get someone willing to open that door for you? And not always can you trust that person who you have open conversations with. And this is where IP comes into how much do you disclose. So having safe environments is critically important for women. And in my job now that I'm seconded 6 months into DSI, there's multiple times where I'm the only woman around the table. There could be 45 men, 60 men, and I'm the only woman. It's disconcerting, but now what I've realized is that in the engagements with each of our researchers, with the entities, is that what active strides, and this is why I was asking in my opening remarks, was are we making the proactive strides and the concerted efforts to include a diverse representation, number one. And number two, what enablers are we putting in place to open that door for diversity, fairness, and representativity? So these are things that, as I'm here, I'm going to be pushing and continue to push as I have done at the university. So thank you.
Indeed, that's a very relevant question, Madam Facilitator. I think it's just so unfortunate that as women leaders, we do tend to be gatekeepers. I listen to my own children, and whenever they go for an interview or they're interacting with a woman who's in the leadership in the establishment, they'll come back and say, "Yo, Mom, that lady is hectic." And I've since learned that they really mean that that lady gave them hell, whether it was in the interview or whatever. But the reality is we've put ourselves as gatekeepers. And the intention is never to keep people away, but because we want to attain the integrity, the success of our own portfolios, we present as gatekeepers. And I think it's very important as leaders that, we still have a responsibility to maintain and attain integrity in our organizations and in our space. But we really need to be able to create opportunities for young people, especially young women coming up the ranks. I'm always reminded, I remind myself every day that I didn't get to where I am right now because I just woke up and I was there. It's because people identified my potential, nurtured that potential, and gave me an opportunity to take up leadership positions. And therefore, I have that responsibility. And I do it in my own space, including providing mentorship. I think it is so important to mentor young people. It's actually a joy as you watch a young woman literally evolve from a space of being closed, insecure, not sure of their role in life, and you see them opening up. I think that's the role we need to play, and I want to believe I try and do it. I'm sure I could do it more if I availed the time, but it's very, very important as a leader to enable young people to come up the ranks. And I think all the women who are in this room probably know of the PhD syndrome. And for those of you who have PhDs, Dr. Rakeshni, it's not that kind of PhD. It's the pull her down syndrome. We're well known for that. And therefore, I think it's just something that we need to remind ourselves on a daily basis. We sit, particularly in South Africa, and probably most of the African continent, with a high number of young people who are unemployed. You know, the social sector has said it's literally a ticking time bomb we sit with. So let's take responsibility that where we can, in our own personal spaces, and I'm talking to myself, I'm reminding myself, create those opportunities, bring young people into business initiatives so that they themselves can grow. Because if I create 2 businesses through my own entrepreneurship initiatives, those opportunities will create space for others, and then it just has a catalytic effect. But unless we do it and we make a concerted effort to do it, it ain't gonna happen. But more important for me in my space within the disability sector, bring in other people with disabilities. It is so sad, but it is a reality. I think as Dr. Rakeshni was saying, you find yourself, you're in this, whether it's a board or whatever, and you're the only one in that room sitting with so many men. You're lucky if you're a woman, but you're hardly ever going to find a person with a disability in that space. So we have a responsibility to do that, bring young people on board, particularly people with disabilities. And this is something that I'm hoping everybody will take up as a mental and a challenge in your own professional lives. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So with every session I'm in, I always think, what are the key words that I'm taking away from that? And from this session, I'm taking away adaptability, that we need to morph, right? Diversity is coming through quite strongly, and pragmatism. So thank you so much for that. It's really been a very insightful session. And Dr. Msomi, I think next time we have these sessions, we must get the men to chair. Let's not have only women talking about women's issues. Let's have the men be part of the conversations and add to solutioning in the spirit of diversity, right? Great stuff. So just to conclude, thank you so much, Dr. Rakeshni. Thank you. Can I call you Sebe? Thank you so much for your time. And MEC, again, it would have been absolutely wonderful to get your insights, but thank you for gracing us with your presence. We certainly appreciate that. So just some housekeeping. I'd like to announce the sessions so that you know where we're going. And we're going to really try to stick to time so that you do have the opportunity to attend the various sessions that you want to. So all the sessions that are in track 8 will take place in Hall 11. So track 8 will take place in Hall 11. Track 9, Hall 12. Track 10 will be here in the plenary. Track 11 will be in 22A. I'm going to repeat them. Track 8, Hall 11. Track 9, Hall 12. Track 10, Plenary Hall. And track 11, Hall 22A. For the women's luncheon, again, we have limited seats, so please make sure that at 1 o'clock on the dot, you are at Hall 22 DEF. And all the other plenary sessions, being the Rising Stars, I must say I'm looking forward to that one, will be here in the plenary hall. There'll be an exciting conversation on the new public health order here in the plenary hall, as well as a dialogue with African biotech leaders here in the plenary hall. So colleagues, please do participate in these sessions. We've got esteemed speakers that have come across the world to share their insights with us. We look forward to seeing you throughout the day. So the sessions will start at 11 promptly. We still have the exhibition on the other side. Do walk around there and see the various innovations. Thank you so much.